Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more Hemi-Sync podcasts, such as Episode 8 with Dean Radin, podcasts that aren't necessarily associated with any particular Hemi-Sync product, but simply feature fascinating guests and subjects associated with the frontiers of consciousness research and understanding, please consider joining our exclusive Patreon page and get some great discounts on Hemi-Sync products in the bargain. Thanks for watching. We're joined today by Andrej Hrvatin. He is a musician and sound artist from Slovenia. His new album is called Hero's Journey, which is available both as a metamusic piece with Hemi-Sync and as simply music on our Flying Man Records label. He is focused on deeper connections between music, philosophy, and transcendental states. His website is called Nimetu.org, which means I am not here in Slovenian. But he is here today. And so we are pleased to have him. Andrej, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. You've got a really cool life story. You've been experiencing these transcendent states from a very early age, often under difficult conditions. So could you maybe just start by telling us a bit about your early life and how these experiences shaped you?
So first, hello, thank you for having me, Garrett. Finally, we can talk without the technical difficulties. Yes, as you said in the introduction, my life was quite challenging from the beginning, but at the same time, I don't perceive it as such. But later, when I compared stories, I realized that I had some experiences that are not so ordinary. And also some of those early memories were unusual. I mean, there were not a lot of them, but those that were, didn't make sense from a logical point of view. So like one thing that I remembered myself from a birth perspective, and I had this memory of myself as a 5-year-old child in this intensive care in the hospital. Very vivid memory, how I'm lying there with this toy monkey that it was called Fitzko, under like in Pippi Langstrumpf, you know. And so only later I realized that it's impossible that I have such a memory, because this point of view, how could I see myself from the ceiling down? Of course, there are many explanations how this came to be, but my very strong idea is that it was that because I was there after one operation as a kid, there were some complications, and they had to revive me. And so obviously, I mean, this is my most the simplest explanation, that I somehow in that moment that I somehow went outside and could see myself down. Later, when I researched more about this phenomena, I realized that this is quite common, that it's not so uncommon, that it happens to many people. And yeah, it was like a memory, this watching myself from a bird's perspective, and then also watching outside of the window of this hospital very vividly. I saw the police officers there, because it was this a very interesting time when if you maybe remember this dictator Tito. I mean, we didn't perceive him as dictator. He was like but he was, and he was ill, and for political reasons, they brought him not not in the hospital in Belgrade, but to Ljubljana, which is the capital of my country, which is near the western border of the former Yugoslavia. So there was some political things. So he was here, and also this hospital was back then very important. So I know that this memory is accurate, because it was guarded everywhere with these police officers. So yeah, so it was this was like first hint that it is possible to travel with the mind, very, not just figuratively, or like it's not just imagination, but it's obviously something real that you can do. But as a rational person, I still try to get like ideas or answers in other ways, not just in this metaphysical way. But when the experience is there, you have to accept it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. So you had kind of a classic out-of-body / near-death experience where you're kind of viewing yourself on the hospital bed from an elevated position in the room or even outside the room. And this was when you were 5 years old and having an operation because you had cancer, right? You overcame cancer at a young age.
Yeah. I had this cancer, but I was fortunate that this doctor was very, very like intelligent, intuitive, and she sent me to this further research, because back then, that was in the 80s, it was not so developed like now. So she really had to have this intuition that something that maybe let's check for this. And yeah, unfortunately, it was an early stage. They just had to remove a kidney, and that I'm fine for the rest of my life. Yeah. So I had this interesting experience there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was not the last one, right? There was another one that followed that.
Yeah. Later in the teens, again, I was as a child, I was very open, very extroverted in a way. But then after, for some reason, in the teen years, I started becoming more closed in, more philosophical, starting to think about why we are here. What is all this? What is this body? Why we have to move from point A to point B? Classical thing, like existential questions that everyone asks. But I had this deeper urge to ask them all the time, and I became somehow overwhelmed by these questions. It was not just a provocative intellectual question, but it was sort of a burden, and it triggered some sort of depression. And in some cultures, I mean, the way I felt in that moment, they say like it's shamanic illness, because you become ill and really lose your will to live, and your energy, and you start to get all sorts of weird feelings and so on. And at one point, yeah, I had this accident, and again in the hospital, I was for a prolonged time in this sort of sedated state because of the painkillers or morphine and so on, and I had very visionary reaction to those painkillers that usually you don't get. It should not be hallucinogenic, the morphine, but it was for me. I synthesized all sorts of sounds, music from the machines that were beeping, and so the music started playing.
So just to be clear, though, so you were on a morphine drip as a result of a second near-death experience, right? You had like a fall or something, correct?
Yeah, but I didn't perceive it as something special back then. It was just trauma, and but later, after that whole week of being there and then recovery, and I started really thinking, okay, there's some other layer of mind, other layer of perception that is possible, that is there, that's real, that we encounter when we are in these border situations, or like this philosopher Karl Jaspers say, this Grenzsituationen, like border situations, extreme situations where you could die, or maybe a war breaks up, or you're some very difficult thing happens to you. Then your whole this previous perception of reality collapses, and you open up to new dimensions.
I guess I'm curious if these near-death experiences, they cause you to turn inward, right? And so do you think that triggered the depression because you were connected, or you had this experience of some greater reality, right? And then you came back to ordinary reality, and there was a feeling of maybe having lost something, some type of connection, and wanting to recapture it. Do you think that was what triggered the depression, or was it something else?
There are so many things that could be from genetical. There's also some research that children with that survived cancer in the childhood, in the early ages, many times they develop depression for some reason. So if this is some disconnect, or I don't know, if you left something somewhere, why but obviously it's some chemical imbalance, because you should not suffer from asking these existential questions. I mean, you can ask, many people ask them, but it doesn't become a burden. And it was like irrational burden that I had to somehow conquer. And then I started researching what is there, where are the answers, because obviously I was not born in a religious family, so I didn't have this anchor or this solace to seek in the religion and these rituals, which I think are fine. I mean, in some way, yeah, we know religions are the problem of this world, but they also serve a function. If they're, people go to these communions and if they are true believers, they can, it has a psychological function, very beneficial. If you live in such community, which is nice, not fanatical, of course.
No.
And so I didn't have any of that, and I obviously sought some metaphysical answers, which then I found in philosophies and in like many teenagers in the books of Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, everyone in the past probably started with that. Soon afterwards, also Alan Watts and so on, like all this proto-hippie stuff,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of wise things in there, and also problematic. I mean, when I read more and years later, I realized that it's not everything like Castaneda wrote. And of course, all these questions of cultural appropriation and misrepresentation of cultures and so on.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a lot of valuable things and I mean, to me, it was helpful at one stage in my life to realize, okay, this eighth of the world, there's something more. There are people who think the same, people who research those realms, and that it's possible to access those realms systematically with techniques.
Yes.
And
so how did
that?
How did that take you into music? How did you get involved in music?
I mean, music was the first thing. So this is like a part of the story. I mean, all these things happened, and it didn't. Music was always my interest from early ages on. I love to listen to all sorts of songs, music, classical, jazz. I mean, my parents played me like Ella Fitzgerald, like Jimi Hendrix, whatever, and they were like young. I mean, my mother was 18 or something when she had me, and father 22. So there was not this big difference. So they were very cool parents and introducing me to all this cool music. And at the same time, I had this urge to explore music and of course, I listened a lot pop music also and everything.
Yeah.
But early on, I was influenced by many things, many different things, not just children's songs and so on. And I immediately, when I got the first washing powders, when these big cylindric containers, I was always bumping and drumming on them.
Yeah.
And then school, I was drumming all the time with pencils on the table and annoying my schoolmates and so on. And this continued. So I was always very rhythmical, very into rhythm, and so I also went to music school. I started playing clarinet, and thus started my musical education, completely classical, normal. I mean, like systematic in the music school.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was interested in all this other musics, and very early, I was very enthusiastic about synthesizers and soundscapes. And I remember I always enjoyed listening in headphones and observing how they produced these different, especially in the 80s, the reverbs, delays, different layers, depths of music. And so I was not only listening to the songs and lyrics, but early on I started listening to the sounds, to the timbre, to this whole soundscape of music.
That's interesting. So I think you've cited a number of influences in your life, both musically and philosophically. I guess for people that are familiar with Hemi-Sync, one of the most notable ones, I guess, is Byron Metcalf, who's a great shamanic composer. And then also you follow the work of the Tibetan Bon practice, specifically Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, who is a two-time Hemi-Sync artist and is actually working on a third. And so both of these kind of borrow from ancient shamanic traditions and use music to induce altered states of consciousness. How do you approach using sound to induce these transcendent states and also to heal?
Yeah, so for me, it happened naturally and very organically. I was always doing like already in the teens. So we had this alternative theater group, and I was doing sound for the theater, so I was always interested in soundscapes and producing different feelings with music, atmospheres, not just songs, and structures, but the structures that are sort of immersive. And later on, I became more and more interested in performances that are very intimate. So I was at one point annoyed with this art scene that seemed very superficial. There was always this, like everything else seemed to be more important than just this event that was happening. Concert, like social things, socializing, food, drinks, having fun, and so on, which is okay. But I was interested in this direct effects of music. So at one point I said, okay, when I was invited for one to construct one performance for a experimental music festival, I decided to do it in the dark. So I'm not important. I don't want to be seen, observed. Don't mind me. I'm not here to show something. I just want you to experience sound. So this is how it started. It was called breathe in, breathe out, or inhale, exhale, actually, which was also the title of one Slovene composer, Vinko Globokar. He made this book. It's more avant-garde composer, but I borrowed the title Inhale, Exhale. He's a trombone player. And I said, okay, how can I engage people? Like, we are in the dark. This is first layer. They don't see me. And I want them to participate somehow. I don't want them to be passive, so they can engage with me. And I said, okay, I will give them triggers for breathing. And it was a surround performance. And in the last speakers, in the rare speakers, they had cues for breaths. So it was like recorded breathing, breathe in, breathe out. And it was part of the composition, but at the same time, it was a guide track for audience to freely engage with me, with the music. And there were different sounds, and I was playing flutes, ethnic flutes, kavar, ney, some other stuff, live. And so it started. And I didn't know that it would trigger anything. I just wanted it to be very intimate and very direct. And then afterwards, people started coming. What was that? What I felt something. Like there was some warmth, or did somebody open the window? I felt like a breeze of air came in out of nowhere. Then many people say there was some sort of electricity going on up their limbs, and then some people said, "Well, I closed my mind and I drifted. I saw things and so on." I said, "I don't know. Well, I just played. It's dark. Imagination works, But of course, I'm very curious, so I immediately started researching what is that, what's happening, what kind of thing is this.
And so you also put together a video that's based on this breathe in, breathe out, right? It's a short 6-minute video, which you combine with your interest in cryotherapy, right? You're a big fan of Wim Hof, the Iceman. You've used cryotherapy to treat depression. And so folks that can't travel to Slovenia to attend one of your events, we're going to play for you one of Andrej's videos of him literally walking barefoot through snow in like a pair of swim shorts, I guess, and getting under this waterfall. And it's a really cool video. If you're on audio only and you can only hear it, it's also a very cool sonic experience. So I encourage you to sit through it. If you need to fast forward through it, just jump about 6 minutes ahead into the conversation. We'll pick you up there. But check this out.
We are of this earth, connected with everything around us. The earth, the air, the oceans, and the rivers. All the different sources of energy. Breathe in. Breathe out. We roam the imaginary worlds with our mind. Explore. We exist. The mind and body are one. Go deeper, down, beyond, descend, further, deeper. Let go, fall, float in a clear and open space. We live in cities consumed by everyday life, going from point A to point B, forgetting the ever-present mystery that surrounds us. We thread our ways to work, to school, the multitude of little errands, all the joys and sorrows. We get lost, entranced by the mechanics of survival, distracted from the real, all-pervasive magic of the inexplicable, of the universe and all the layers of conscious experience that exist at the same time as we go around, living, dormant. Breathe in, breathe out. Roam freely. You are much more than you know. Then you remember. Then you can grasp and focus. You find yourself in an endless space, pure awareness. What you imagine becomes real. You create. You exist. If you need to change, if you wish to be happy, healthy, stronger, you can change in an instant, with a snap of a finger. Our minds are capable of incredible things. We can conquer fears, cold, and the elements, become stronger and more powerful. You are here, in this world. You exist. Explore. Breathe in. Breathe out. Become playful, irrational, daring, curious, self-conscious, wild, true. Let your imagination loose, but don't forget the reason, the logic to navigate your experience on Earth. Remain grounded, your feet extending like roots into the earth, connected with everything around you. You are safe, free, powerful. Breathe, play, dance, sing, drum, and focus. Feel the cold water cleansing you, washing away all the negative, all the baggage that holds you down. All is clear. You are aware of yourself and everything around you that extends further and further from your body. The surroundings, the country, the continent, the world, the moon, the planets, and the sun, the solar system, the galaxy, the clusters of galaxies. You are aware of the infinity stretching out in all directions. The raw power of the waterfall brings you back into the moment. You are here. You feel fresh, renewed, strong, with a clear mind. The world is an inexplicable mystery, and we are on a great adventure. Breathe in. Breathe out. This is your story.
That looked cold as hell. How often do you engage in this practice?
Sorry?
How often do you engage in this practice where you go up to the waterfall or get into really cold water, and how does it help you?
This was much later. After quite some time, when I already developed my whole sonic, immersive sonic thing. And at one point in my life, I felt I need some additional boost, something to gain power, to keep even more balance. I was already in a rather balanced state. Mm-hmm. But I really needed something that, gives you this strength and that you can just observe the world like it's a movie. I mean, you're still reactive to things, but you have this buffer that protects you from direct, you just watch things. Okay, negative things happen, and I can watch this movie and I can be a bit distant, not affected. You don't let things in so much. And this proved to be an amazing, very powerful system. Like many people, I watched this Vice documentary about Wim Hof, and but funny, I was actually searching for Tumo meditation. I learned that this exists, and Wim's practice is partly based, or is his version of Tumo, not religious, not spiritual so much, but in his own way. But I could not find at that moment any Tumo online or workshops or whatever, and I found him. Mm-hmm. And that immediately clicked. I first did these challenges he offered for free. Actually, all the information, if somebody knows what to search for, you can find all the information online for free, and you can do it. But of course, it's good to have some guidance, somebody showing you. And so I got his training, this 10-week program, and it was a great process to go through. It's very fun guy. I connect with this. Is his attitude, because it's this no bullshit attitude. Just do it, try it out. Don't just listen. Do something. It's possible. And so I started doing this, like cold showers every day, breathing exercises. I already knew because I was interested in breath work. I knew about different pranayama techniques. Yeah. But he has very powerful style. His breath is a bit different and it pushes you immediately into this very alert. I mean, everyone can just check it out. For those who don't know Wim Hof, it's a good thing to check and try out. Uh-huh. And I started that and developing my own system. I said, okay, this is really good to keep balance. Because I had these depressive episodes in the past. Yeah, I thought this could be very helpful to people. Maybe I was not depressed at that moment, but I could feel how emotionally even more stable, even more powerful you become. So I decided to do my own subsystem of that, incorporate Wim Hof and other things, and offer it for free, like Nimetu antidepressant. Yeah, it can also be checked online, and everyone can watch and try out.
Cool. Yeah. Again, check out his site, Nimetu.org. He has some cool free stuff on there. So tell us a bit about your current work, Locus Solus, and what that's all about.
So basically, Locus Solus is, I would say, at that point when I constructed it, it was a live performance for a single visitor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a culmination of everything I did up to that point. All the ideas about this, I did several how to say, immersive concerts, or projects that I repeated with on different occasions. One was called The Nest. I wanted to construct the feeling of safety, so people would they were guided through different stages, and the main aim was that when you come, you're in the nest, you're surrounded, you're safe, and then you can travel inward more easily. So this was the first idea that I incorporated and kept also in Locus Solus. I think it's for any kind of exploration of I don't know, subconscious, or if you say this shamanic way, it's very important to have this safe space and trust. So, or either in some other person or in the technique that you are using. You have really, it's most important that you are centered and down to earth, and that you feel safe, that you're afraid, because quite difficult and quite strong things can happen in these sessions. Not just musical or with breath and so on. And if you're not prepared, people can freak out and so on. I'm not just scaring people, but this happens when people go and are not unprepared. It never happened to me, fortunately, in my groups. And so after several of different kinds of these projects, also everything was happening in the dark all the time. I constructed Locus Solus. I used all the instruments, all the knowledge, all the ideas, how to intertwine all these layers of sounds and the ways to directly influence this listener into this composition.
And so this is the musical piece that we're offering on Flying Man Records, which also serves as the basis for the meta-music piece called Hero's Journey. So tell us a bit more about that. You use native flutes very prominently in this piece. And the first thing that I thought of when I was listening to it is, oh, this sounds like an Icaro, like a shamanic, a shamanic trance song, basically, that they use during ayahuasca ceremonies.
Actually, the feeling behind it is exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, they know what their guiding experience with song. So the ayahuasca experience, they guide with singing, with sounds, with music. Of course, they get these songs in trance and so on. And the same is with me when I construct these things. I don't belong to any tradition, so it's different. But my aim, also the name Nimetu, which means I'm not here, it means that I try to remove myself. Like I just become sort of a channel, if you want. I mean, this is a loaded word now, but that's the idea, that I remove my person from and allow something larger to happen, and then the ideas come. It's sort of the idea of mindfulness also, or different techniques. Like David Lynch is promoting his own, but this is exactly the same mechanism. That you remove yourself or this ego state or something, and allow that something larger downloads. And so I get these feelings, how to construct soundscapes, what kind of frequencies I want, and just things start coming together. I just allow the things come. Of course, then you engage reason and you arrange and listen. But I must say that very little. I work very fast at one point. When things happen, it happens very fast. I just open synths. I just got the idea, okay, I want that kind of structure here. I want this. I want deeper frequencies there.
Yeah.
Okay, there's flutes. And so everything comes together pretty fast. And then of course, I arrange it. And also when I record it, I want to be in the state of a special state, very relaxed. It's not like some virtuosic music. It's not technically very challenging or something, but it's important that I feel it at that moment, that I really put something in. because even in ordinary music, it's a very magical thing. If you think that one person plays just some ratio of frequencies, and at the distance another person is sad or happy or energetic or something. So even in normal music, we influence people at a distance. It's a very magical thing. And even if a melody, like, why is the ratio of frequencies emotional? I mean, this is just something very abstract, and you are sad, for example. But then there's another layer. If performer plays this ratio of melodies very flat without engaging his own interpretation, his own feeling, you will just say, okay, this is a sad melody.
Right.
But if I really put all the embellishments, all the phrasings, and I really feel this sadness, if I want sadness or happiness or bliss, if I want to cause bliss and I really feel blissful and how to produce that, I can transfer that into this simple melody.
Right.
I want to embrace you, and I can produce that. I mean, every musician who understands this can do that. And it's a very magical thing, even in ordinary music that is not meant for some mind journeys, but you can use anything. Benjamin Britten's War Requiem was my journey music, for example. It's a very contemporary classical music, very intellectual also, but at the same time, he's such master, and somehow it resonates with me that at one point in this music, always when the climax came, I was like thrown out of my body and like literally, and I just came in.
Yeah.
And I'm not a crazy person. It's a very, though I can say it's imagination or whatever, but it triggered this musical moment, triggered a very cathartic opening experience.
Right.
So I knew that this is possible, and that's what I strive for when I construct these things. I really want to make a nice journey that you can really go deep and experience different stages in which you can either work on some problem if you have it, or you can just immerse yourself in the experience and observe what is happening, just float. And, so when I performed this live, this was there are very, very intense reactions from the participants.
Yeah.
It's important then that you guide them back.
Yeah.
So I think this is exactly what Hemi-Sync idea is also. So I was very familiar with this, and I'm very happy and flattered when you accepted this music.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing it. I mean, I think one of the interesting things about this is that the Locus Solus piece and the Hero's Journey piece, and you've talked about this, they have different effects. Even though they're fundamentally the same underlying composition, the straight music piece versus the meta music piece, they have different effects. And like, how would you describe that? How are they different in your view?
Well, for me, they're very similar, but I would say that now when I listened to the version, the Hero's Journey,
which is the Hemi-Sync piece,
my intent and the intent of these additional frequencies, what Kevin constructed around it, I think it brings you even deeper, maybe even more. It's maybe more therapeutic, or how it's pronounced.
Therapeutic.
It drags you faster, more immediately. It drags you into the experience. And when I was listening, and I know these songs, I did it, and I entered this unconscious state. I don't know what kind of brain waves are that, but okay, it was before sleep, so I was tired, but I entered this deep sleep, and I could not finish it. I was then awakened till at the end, and it had sort of like this, if you know the technique yoga nidra, the yoga of sleep. It was the same when I did this yoga nidra sessions for sometimes. It was the same. I lost consciousness, and then I woke up at the end. I didn't know what's happening, but I felt fresh, renewed. So I think this could have very similar, like regenerative feeling. So you enter the experience. You can explore, fly with, and what you need this structure will bring you into very deep and healing spaces, and then it will bring you back.
Yeah.
I think it's enhanced. For me, they're very similar, but the Hemi-Sync one is really enhanced for a listener at home.
Yeah.
But well, Locus Solus is more like a movie.
Yeah.
For me, it's more. It's the same, actually, the same parts that are arranged in a different way, and because you don't have the influence of the Hemi-Sync frequencies, you are more you are maybe more alert or maybe more rational. You stay at one. You are not so deeply immersed into this other. I think you call them focus levels.
Yeah.
You stay maybe more here, and you can just go on a very imaginative journey. Mm-hmm. So that would be the main difference for me. But when it's performed live, Locus Solus, I think it has a very similar effect as the Hemi-Sync version. So I would say with this addition, you get what is otherwise possible only when it's live and I'm there and I walk around and I help trigger this experience.
Yeah. That's a great description. There's also a beautiful passage from your website, which I'm going to read here because I think it really captures what you're trying to do with your work. Here it goes. Lost in darkness, embraced by vibrations and musical cues, participating physically with adjusted breathing and other possible body interactions, bathing in sound, losing the perspective of time and space, letting go of expectations, and diving into the endless sea. I am not here, yet I exist. It's pretty good, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think this is a piece that, so I'm always very partial to the shamanic stuff, and I really loved listening to this piece and journeying with this piece. It's really beautiful. And I think people who are into this type of music are going to really enjoy it. So thanks a lot for doing it with us.
Thank you for having me and for the nice words.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. If you liked this, please share it up, give it a like, send it to a friend, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.